So first we have to start by saying a definition or a concept of CDA, of critical discourse analysis. Um, it is an anti-essentialist perspective, that is to say that it implies an interdisciplinary approach, since the social problems it deals with are too complex to be analyzed or studied in a single field. It analyzes discourse. And to understand discourse, we have to take into account three things. First, the text, the context, and the discourse. The text can be oral or written, or even can be non-oral or written, because, for example, sign language is not oral or written, but I don't know how it would be said. So it is a product rather than a process. Then we have to understand context. Context is the mentally represented structure of those properties of the social situation that are relevant for the production comprehension of discourse. Let's analyze this phrase. Context, the mentally represented structure, that is to say, how people understand the social situation, will explain how discourse is understood in that particular place, in that particular year, or year and place, and with that population. So it is the mentally represented structure of those properties of the social situation. What are the properties of a social situation? Let's give an example. For example, before people would say that black people didn't have a soul, and that was taken for granted, and nobody would start to complain about that or debate on that. It was a mentally represented structure of those properties of the social situation. It is like the ideology, or I don't remember the other word, the idiosyncrasy of a particular population or society or whatever, that are relevant for the production comprehension of discourse. That are relevant for the production comprehension of discourse. Here it says production or comprehension. When we talk about production or comprehension, that means that we are having an anti-essentialist perspective, because we are saying that things, issues, actions, or whatever are socially constructed. They are not natural. Nothing is absolutely natural. All has a social construction. Let's say an example. For example, well, I will come back to this because I don't remember an example. Production comprehension of discourse. Okay, so what does CDA allows us to do? It allows us to suggest solutions to problems. For example, people didn't know how to call politically correctly, with political correctness, blind people, so they started to use other words. Or how do we call a couple that is not legally married? So people started to use other words. For example, it can be other types of solutions. Sorry, I forgot to. So, suggest solutions. Be aware of the uses of language, because, for example, when our governor, our ex-governor, used to say our dear grandparents, he was using those words to talk about the older, and that wasn't innocent. It had an intention to make social interaction transparent. What what does this mean? For example, it is talking about the division between private and non-private issues. For example, before, if inside our house our husband or couple or whatever hit us, it was considered to be something private and nobody could talk about it or intervene. And now it is transparent. I mean, it means that everything can be debatable. Everything can be took to the field of discursive debate, let's say. And then it allows us to understand citizens who have little or no access to the elites involved in decision taking. What does this mean? I think that it means, because I am interpreting this text, because it is what I understand of the summary I made according to what I have read before this. For example, we don't understand why people keep voting the same governor or the same president or whatever when economy is a disaster, or when they don't do anything, or when they are corrupt. And CDA allows us to understand why they are being manipulated, they are being dominated mentally and in their behavior. Lastly, the key concepts that I have chosen about CDA are discourse and ideology. Let's remember that discourse is the whole process of social interaction, in which text is only a part. That would be the definition in order not to get lost in this. So discourse says in this part that power relations are discursive. And we could say also that all relations are relations of power. All relations. And this is something very simple. For example, a mother and the son. It is a relationship of power, because the mom has more power, let's say, than the kid in the relationship, or the relation of. Okay. And then discourse structures, enacts, confirm, legitimate, reproduce, or challenges relations of power and dominance in society. So this is absolutely related to ideology. So, and this is also related to what can we do against it. I mean, we can have a passive role or an active role. We can just let everything to. And this is I am saying things that are that I have to say later. Okay, so it constitutes society and culture. Why? We are going to read it in the part of ideology. It's a form of social action. It does ideological work. So the last part of this is discourse, no, ideology. So ideology is a means of legitimizing existing social relations and difference of power. What does it mean, legitimize? There is a difference between something legal and something legitimate. Something legal is something that is according to law, that abides by the law. But something legitimate is something that is just. and it has to be, it is related to justice, and the concept of justice is a socially created concept, because what it was considered just in the past is not the same now. So, existing social relations. This means, and with existing, is that it is changing all the time. And it is linked to the notion of power. Let's say, so how can social relations and differences of power be legitimized? Through the recurrence of ordinary familiar ways of behaving, which take these relations and power of differences for granted. This is also called common sense. So, what does it mean, what it says here? This means that things are legitimized by habits. Let's think of an example. Um, a relationship, a boyfriend and a girlfriend. They behave in a way all the time, and they think that that way of behaving is normal, and maybe it is not. Maybe it has violence, maybe it has indifference, or whatever. So, what is considered to be normal, actually, it is a social convention. So, here it says, in the next node, it says that common sense is equal to assumptions implicit in conventions that people are not aware of. For example, if a boy goes to the house of her girlfriend and he just knock at the door and doesn't talk to anybody, or él llega en el auto y toca la bocina y que salga ella, that's a social convention that not necessarily is the correct way of behaving. It is just naturalized. He does that and he will keep doing it, and that's all. I'm just saying an example. It is closely linked to language because using language is the commonest form of social behavior and the form of social behavior where we rely most on common sense and assumptions. For example, um, some years ago in Argentina, people were saying when there was a an homicidio, I don't remember the word, they were saying un crimen pasional. So if we analyze that, those words, they have an intention. I mean, it was that the men were so passionate that they ended up killing their girlfriend or wife or whatever. They were passionate. They weren't murderers. They were just passionate. So they were using words with positive connotations to explain something that it wasn't nice. And it is linked to the notion of power, discourse. Okay, so here it is repeating. Practices which seem to be universal and based on common sense have become naturalized and can be traced to have an origin in dominant groups. Okay, so this is repeated, but what does it say here? The power of dominant groups may be present in laws, rules, habits, or general consensus in everyday actions that are taken for granted. In this respect, the exercise of power is not obviously coercive, because that would be dangerous for them. They need persuasion and manipulation. They need to persuade people and manipulate people. They cannot use just coercion. Coercion is physical control. Let's say hit them or whatever. So for this, it's necessary to have what? It is necessary to have an influential discourse. because influential discourse have more chances to control the minds and the actions of others by different forms or by different means, areas of discourse, let's say by the media, by language, by internet, wherever. Influential discourse is a way of power through language. So this is all for this now.